Hey besties, welcome back to my channel, Reality Reads. It is time for us to break down another episode of the Traitors Season 4. This was episode 7, the episode that Alan Cumming has been talking about literally since the summer when filming wrapped. Talking about watch out for the banquet, watch out for the banquet. This is going to be the most epic episode of the US Traitors franchise. On and on and on about how, like, historic this episode was going to be for the franchise. And I don't know about you all, but I'm like, excuse me, did we watch the same episode? And obviously I know, like I said, he started talking it up right when filming wrapped. So they have all this editing and different kind of things that, you know, he wasn't necessarily a part of. Maybe he didn't see the final cut. But still, the production team probably saw him, you know, really championing this episode. And so whatever carnage it was he was referring to that they then decided to cut out, big mistake. Either leave it in or tell him, hey, can you like not talk this up so much because it's not gonna be on there. It's not gonna give what you're giving.
But my friends still are, Mona, and you are not taking away any more of them.
And yet I don't see any of them here with you now.
Let's dive into each part of the episode. So we start the episode off with the banquet. We see Lisa coming down the stairs. Everyone has their big grand entrance into the banquet hall. Which, fun fact, if you want just a little bit of behind the scenes, I think that this probably was not actually filmed in the castle. I think that this was filmed inside of the church that we've seen in previous seasons. Last season we had the face-to-face murder with Chriselle in the church. I think that is actually where this banquet took place. I don't think it took place in the castle. So we start the whole thing off with the banquet and everyone is on edge. Everyone can tell that there's going to be something that happens at this banquet. I mean, hello, it's the Traitors. There's not a banquet for no reason. Everyone's looking at the cards. Everyone's eating all of the things. And then Alan comes out, lets them all know that someone has been cursed by the Traitors and will potentially be dead by the end of their meal. But then he reveals that there's actually a bit of a twist to this, and we have the antidote. And then it is up to everyone to discuss and decide which two people they think possibly could have gotten this curse from a traitor and are going to drink the antidote. This was actually like a really interesting twist, I thought. But I have to be honest, I feel like Traitors is headed down a very similar path to Big Brother. I'm going to go in further detail on that thought in a little bit when we talk about the challenge. But I did kind of like this twist. It's something that I complained about when Rob C had his murder in plain sight, was like, I wish that there was some way for the faithfuls to combat a murder in plain sight. If they suspect that something is going on, I wish there was a way for them to like call it out in the moment or something along those lines. And I think that that's kind of what this twist offered. There was no guarantee that the person or people that took the antidote were in fact the ones cursed. They all still had to kind of be, you know, clued into what's going on in the game so that they would know who needs the antidote. And as we come to find out, they chose wrong. It was Jam Jam who had been cursed by Lisa. And I had actually posted a TikTok about how, like before the episode aired, about how I thought that her best move for getting someone to touch the amulet would be for her to not fasten it all the way. That way it either falls off or it's loose or whatever, and she can ask someone like for assistance with it. And that's what she did. I think that was really smart. I know a lot of people are acting like she did a terrible job, but the only reason that Jam Jam was like onto her was because there was already sus on her. Obviously, he did not know what happened to him to cause him to be murdered because he thought it was the kiss. So the fact that she was able to pull off the actual like touching of the amulet, I think is still pretty good. I know she goes out at the round table, obviously, but overall, I think she did a pretty good job accomplishing the task at hand. As Jam Jam is being pulled away by these, you know, masked murderous men, he is shouting that Lisa is the one that did it and that it's because she kissed him on the cheek. A lot of people online are really kind of debating back and forth on whether they think Jam Jam should have been able to say anything or not. Honestly, I think it's fair game. If there's going to be a murder in plain sight, I think that the reason so many people are like talking about it is because the person that he called out was correct. Would we be having the same conversation if the person that he named when he was leaving was incorrect? Because, like I just said, he was correct about the person, he was wrong about the method in which it happened. So he didn't have all the facts, he wasn't giving them everything. So I think it's fair game. It's not like he was schmurdered and then given all the details and then was able to give them information. That's not what happened at all. So I think that this was totally fair, and I see it as similar to when faithfuls are banished at the round table and they kind of give like a little, snip, or even traitors when they're banished. Last season, there are multiple traitors that as they were exiting on their circle before they did their reveal, that they threw some fellow traitors under the bus and gave the faithfuls a clue in which way to look next. So if the traitors are allowed to do that when they're banished, I see absolutely nothing wrong with what Jam Jam did. And I don't want to defend Jam Jam, so please end this conversation. After Jam Jam's gone, everyone is kind of talking and blah, 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 blah. And then it's time for the challenge. And this challenge really got on my nerves because it was extremely physical. And if it was just adding money to the prize pot, then I would say whatever. But this is like an individual challenge to win a power. And it was an extremely, extremely physical challenge to win what could potentially end up being a game-changing power. We saw a power be won last season. Brittany Haynes won the Seer power. And that was a very leveled challenge. It started off with the clowns who, they showed the inside of their pockets and then they all started moving around, and there was just certain ones that had a certain emblem on the inside of their pockets, and you had to guess where one of them had moved to. And if you guessed correctly, you won some money. Then they moved on to a different section and they had to complete, something else. It was very much a mix of luck-based and mental. And I think that is way more fair than running up a hill or slingshotting some urns. Come on. This is why I'm saying that Traitors is very much headed towards a Big Brother-esque kind of situation, throwing in all of these twists that some work and some don't, and then using physical challenges for game-changing times. I understand that some of these are going to be physical challenges. We actually do see them have quite a few physical challenges, but it's very much a group effort. And that's the difference, is when you have a mix of people with varying physical capabilities and they're working together as a team, that's cool. But when you don't, when it's all individual, why is it physical only? So after the challenge, obviously there's some more conversations. Everyone is talking about Lisa. And this is just carryover from the last episode as well. She obviously was very close to being eliminated over Ron, so there's still all of that suspicion on her. And then the fact that Jam Jam called her out on his way out obviously does not help things. But Natalie was really aggressive in wanting the antidote. And so there's obviously suspicion on her as well. There's some people that think her wanting that antidote so badly made her seem like an ultra faithful. And while I understand what they're saying, I also understand the faithful's point of view, and your point of taking meat from someone was no different than Tara's point of taking meat from someone. So the fact that you were being so aggressive about it, basically kind of like Mark Ballas said, this isn't about the food. The food is not the thing. But Natalie just wasn't willing to listen to any of that kind of information. She was very tunnel visioned. And I get it. She got it in her head that it was her and she couldn't come off of that. But I do understand how it was a bad look to some people. As part of the conversations people are having after the challenge, Natalie and Tara are both talking to each other. And Natalie slips up and says that, you know, she murdered gamers or we murdered gamers or whatever. Honestly, these slip up reasonings for wanting to target people, obviously, that's not good enough evidence to go on. You've done it twice now, and both of those times, those people were faithfuls. So, to me, that just proves more so that, like, more than likely it's a faithful that's going to slip up because they're just not really paying that much attention to every word that they're saying, unlike a traitor that's going to be very, very careful about how they're speaking. I'm glad that Natalie wasn't banished because of another slip up, but I really need these faithfuls to kind of just get it together. They are so blind and they will just, like, some things just don't make sense to me. So, okay, going back to the challenge, Rob gets the dagger, right? And we see him have a conversation with the other 5 people that were in the running for the dagger. And he tells them, I'm the one with the dagger. Can we all make a pact to keep that a secret? Just because. Like, there's no reason for it, and they all just agree to it. It's not like there was like a counter offer or there is no benefit to any of them to keep the secret for Rob. Zero beneficial elements to the proposition that Rob gave them. And they all just agree with it. As much as some people are really catching on to things, they just won't stay in their own brain. And there's certain people that they will just like listen to automatically. And that's where they're really falling short. Is some of them do have like good reads and good ideas of how to like discern information and look into things a little bit deeper, but then they allow other people to just get them off track, and it's so frustrating to watch. But anyway, so the reason I say that is I think that there was a sufficient amount of heat on Natalie. In fact, we see before they even go to the round table a conversation of several people agreeing to vote Natalie out once they get to the round table. But then Rob speaks up, and it's like everyone's mind changes because Rob spoke. And if you actually, like, I'm not being a Rob hater at all. I'm rooting for the Traitors. I want the Traitors to win. I root for them every season. And I don't necessarily think that Rob is playing a bad game, but I think these are bad faithfuls that we have this season. I'm just being honest. They are getting distracted way too easily, like I just said. And so to me, that kind of takes away from like, is he really playing all that great of a game? Or does he just have a lot of people that are like willing to follow along with whatever he says? I mean, we've had those conversations when it comes to some Big Brother winners on like, are they as good as what they seem? Or were they in a house of a lot of people that didn't know how to play? I think that there's an argument there. Like, if you actually listen to what he says, like, it's really not that like profound. It's not something that should have been so like groundbreaking to where you completely and totally just like forget everything that you've just thought about. And I think that the reason that I want to point this out is because in the end, do they eliminate Lisa and she's a traitor? Yes, 100%. However, only because he knows that. That's why I question like his skills, because him knowing 100% that Lisa is a traitor and he's really not able to say anything all that profound or groundbreaking or mind-blowing. The reason I'm saying this is I'm seeing a lot of people say he's the greatest traitor ever. And I'm not there yet with you. Do I think he's playing a decent game? Sure. Greatest traitor ever? Huge stretch for me at this point. Because his like big thing that he says is when 2 people have a different story of events. One of them is lying. Yeah, no shit. Like, correct. And all of a sudden, all of the other faithfuls are just like, oh, yeah, exactly, exactly. And he also sticks on to their, like, what reason does Jam Jam have to lie? I agree. Jam Jam wouldn't have a reason to lie. However, it doesn't mean that Jam Jam has the facts. Those are two completely different things. And that's what I need the faithfuls to, like, remember. Is that this game isn't always about lying and telling the truth. Sometimes it's about, like, who has the most facts and who is sharing that information. Because that's the evidence that you kind of have to go off of. And they're really failing in that department. They're really failing in that department this season. So anyways, we see Lisa go. She reveals she's a traitor. Everyone celebrates. They got another traitor. Obviously, there's tension between Candace and Rob. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about Candace's vote against Rob. I am honestly 50-50 on if it was a good move or not. Because a lot of people are saying, like, why wouldn't she write Lisa's name down? Well, it's very easy for Candace and Dorinda to not write Lisa's name down and get out of it and not look shady. There has been a topic of conversation all season about the traitors not going, about the housewives not voting against another housewife. Like, it's the whole reason there was suspicion put on Lisa is because she voted against a housewife. However, what I will say is where I personally am like, I can understand why people are kind of looking at Candace sideways about this vote is because I think her smarter move, and I understand why she didn't do this, she kind of got a little bit of emotion in there, but the smarter move would have been to write Colton's name down. And the reason I say that is she was very consistent with Ron. She always wrote his name down, and she said at every single roundtable, I am just going to stick with writing your name down basically until, like, I find out the truth on what you are, what your role is. And she could have done the same thing with Colton because she was kind of on the band of, like, the Colton theory and all of those different kinds of things. Obviously, we see her change her mind from Natalie. She was in that group of people that said that they would vote for Natalie. But you can just say literally the same thing that you already said, but write down a different name. And, like, be a little bit more, like, show a little bit of consistency instead of, like, your pattern is that you're very, very consistent until this very round table where you went way off left. That's definitely going to throw up some red flags for people. Is it going to be enough for her to be banished? I don't know. I really don't. I think when it comes to the Candace and Rob situation, the only reason that I think that it is Rob that comes out on top is one, because of some things that Candace has said in some interviews and different things like that. And two, because of how blindly loyal these faithfuls are to Rob. He has a good group of them that are just, like, bending at every word that he says. It's actually insane. But the thing that probably annoyed me the most of this whole episode was that when they all get back from the round table, Colton is immediately taking credit for getting Lisa out of the game. It was Rob. Rob is the one that changed a lot of people's minds. Colton, you didn't bring anything new to the table. You had already went after Lisa one time before, and guess what? She wasn't the one that was voted out. It was Rob speaking out against Lisa that sealed her fate. So please go away. I am begging. Honestly, it's my hope that Candace can really, really push for Colton to be schmurdered. I don't think Rob's going to let that happen, but I wish it would. I just need him out of here. Hopefully Johnny Weir and Candace work together and if they can't get Rob, they can at least get Colton out. Y'all, I do not care if Colton makes it to the very end of this game and ends up winning some of this prize pot. I will never give him credit for being a good faithful because he is just constantly just shooting in the dark and being aggressive with, like, no reason. Like, he's literally just trying to aggressively push people into decisions, even though he has no facts or anything to go off of. And we see that really heavily in this episode, because not only does he claim that he's the reason that Lisa got out and he's, the traitor hunter because he got Donna. He didn't. Tiffany Mitchell is the first one that mentioned Donna as a traitor. He is not the first one to suss that out. And it didn't take very much convincing to vote Donna out because everyone was suspicious of her. So, like, in zero way is he the one that got Donna out. There's no way on that one. On Lisa, he may have been the first to mention her name, but, like, you're not the one that convinced people to get her out. It was Rob. And you've been extremely wrong multiple times, and you're getting ready to bark up a wrong tree again. So, no, you're not good at this game. Your stats are not good, and you're also not a football player. Stop saying you're a football player. You're not. You're from The Bachelor. You were not drafted into the NFL. You were in the NFL for approximately 1 week. You never started in a starting lineup on an NFL team. You are not on this show because of playing football. So please stop referring to yourself as a football player and trying to make all these football player analogies. You are not famous for being like an out and proud football player the way that you're trying to portray on this show. That's not what it is. I'm so sorry. You can't erase your past when it's public information. Okay. So anyways, what do I think is going to happen next? I do think that there is potential that Steven could potentially be the one that is out next. I think that that will be really dumb, and I will lose all hope in the Faithfuls if Steven is out next, because the one and only time that there's been suspicion on him is because of the banquet, and you just got out the person that you think did the banquet situation. So then why would there still be suspicion? Like, please be so for real. So I do think there's a possibility that happens. As far as who they might schmurder, I don't know. I also don't know if we'll get a schmurder. They might have to recruit. This episode left off on a cliffhanger of Candace and Rob meeting in the turret, and it was just a short amount of time of that. There's definitely a possibility that Alan meets them, knocks on the door and tells them that they have to do a recruit. I saw some people talking about in the preview. It showed a lot of people in the preview. It could potentially be because they recruit someone, so there is no schmurder. Who knows? We will see. I will be tuned in, but let me know your thoughts so far on the season. What did you think of this episode? Do you agree that it was extremely overhyped? And of course, make sure you're subscribed for all the book and TV content that you need. See you in the next one.